Hi there, I'm Linda and this is Huttons Valley Permaculture. 18 weeks ago I started my Diary of a Permaculture Gardener video episodes, and I think over that time the garden has transformed. From a mostly wild space with some summer veg to a garden with winter growing veg and less wilderness. The beds are slowly being built up with nutritious organic materials and the plants are responding. However, the shortest day is approaching, and with it colder weather, a combination not great for vigorously growing gardens. So my garden's soon going to slow, but that means I can put more time out into other areas where my time is needed, and that's my swales. Permaculture gardening is not only done in zone 1 and 2 areas that lie near the house, but also in sort of zones that are further afield. It's that time of year that allows me to get out into my swale food forest to do more chop and drop, and with the rainfall coming, it means I can also add in more plants. So over the next few wintry months, I'll be maintaining my vegetable garden, but I'll be putting a lot of time out to controlling the wilderness that is my swale system. On my list today is a little bit in both areas actually. In my vegetable garden, I've come across 2 Tagasaste that I think I can transplant. This one's just a young plant, so I think I'll be able to get all the roots up. While this one here is a larger plant, and I'm not so sure we'll get all the roots, but we'll give it a go and transplant that out to an area of my swale. But before we do that, I just wanted to update you on a few things in the garden. Firstly is my covered carrot patch and how that's all going. I've still got it all covered, and with this mesh over the top, the slugs haven't got to my seedlings. Now I think you can just make out my little carrot seedlings, and they don't seem to be hindered at all by this netting that's over the top. They're still quite small. Now I'll be keeping an eye on this garden bed, and when I think they need it, I'll be putting my larger hoop nets over the top and perhaps some mesh over the top of that again, just when they look like they need a little bit of space to sort of start growing up. But at the moment they can kind of push up against this okay. Just beyond my wall of snow peas, which has really kicked into production now, I've got my old broccoli plants. I've taken a head of each of these plants now, and those that I couldn't use immediately, I have blanched and frozen, so they're in the freezer for when I need them. But if you leave some of these plants, kind of little miracles happen. Just check out these side shoots. This one here is the same size just about as the head that I took off it. So I'll be careful to cut that off just under where that head is and see if we can get any more from the same plant. Further along, we see another plant that I took the head off, and it's got 3 big side shoots. I'll get the slug off it. 1, 2, and this one's a little bit smaller but coming along nicely as well. So lessons learned, you just leave your plants in and they might just keep giving. Just an update on a little plant that I've been really proud of as a seedling. It had a huge root system on it and I thought it was going to do great, but having a look at this plant, it's already forming a little head. It's like a little bonsai cauliflower. So it started to form the heads a little bit too early. So perhaps I should have got the seedling into the ground a bit sooner. I'll just leave this plant here and see what happens, but I might just plant another little cauliflower seedling alongside it. And that brings us to another garden bed in which I planted cauliflowers, some which have been chewed right down and no longer there, but others are doing okay. And just here is where I planted the broad bean seeds all around to act as a green manure for each of the little plants. So they're just starting to come up now. There is a little bit of slug damage on these plants, and we've got the culprit right here. But what I'm noticing also in this garden is an abundance of leek seedlings coming up. So what I might do in this bed is perhaps replace the little collie plants that have been slug damaged irreversibly, and I'll leave all the leek seedlings to grow. You know, if the allium family do repel slugs, then perhaps as they get bigger, that will take more effect and maybe protect my plants from those devilish slugs. And the same thing's happening in this kale and beetroot bed that I planted earlier, with my broad beans coming up and also plenty of leek seedlings. And just a little update on my pea bed. They're all going nicely. I haven't really lost maybe one or two plants, but the plants down in these two rows, they're the ones I transplanted. And at this point, it's hard to tell the difference between those and the ones that I just sort of seeded direct. And I'll definitely come in and manage weeds in my pea bed so it doesn't turn out to be just a Swiss chard bed like the other one turned into. Okay, back to the task at hand, and that is digging up these Tagasaste, hopefully successfully. A lot of these pioneer species trees have a deep taproot, which helps kind of break through clay surfaces and bad soils. So we'll see what we've got here. Oh, I think we did pretty well. Looks like we've got all of that taproot. Tagasaste are a nitrogen fixer. So did you see my video the other day looking at the roots of broad beans? They have those little nitrogen nodules, and that's what's on that root. And I'll just put some more of this soil in the pot for a temporary measure until we can get it, until we can get it planted properly. Should have brought my gloves out today. I'll just get that into there. Oh yeah, there's quite a few nodules actually. So I'll get all of them covered. And we'll go get the other one. So this one should come out fairly easily if we succeeded with the last one. Oh, got a couple of potatoes with it. Looks like we harvested some lunch at the same time. Now I'll get this out. Oh yeah, you can see those little nodules happening there as well. Just pop him in there. And I'll just make sure those roots are covered until we get them in. I'll probably just give this pot a bit of a water just to make sure that they're well hydrated until we can get them planted. One of the things I really love about Tagasaste trees can be seen in this Tagasaste that's up on my top swale. It's not even winter yet and already this tree is starting to flower. But it's also that very reason that I find Tagasaste trees hard to manage, particularly in this area near my bees. There's not a lot of flowering plants around here in kind of winter and early spring for my bees to enjoy. But these big trees nearby and further afield are something that they can feed off in this sort of slow nectar flowing time of year. Every time I have time to get out to the swales, like during winter, to do the chop and drop, I'm finding these trees are about to burst into flower, so I can't bring myself to chop them. So I have to wait until spring and when they've finished flowering to chop them. But then I'm often into my garden. So some of these trees have just got so big that they're a bit out of control really. Now sometimes they just die of their own accord, and I've got a couple up here that have done just that, and I'll have to chop those down. And when I do get that down, I'll be replacing it with another Tagasaste. But what I think I've decided in this area up near my bees is just to make it a bee-friendly zone and leave these big beautiful trees and maybe just give them a prune in winter rather than taking them down. And it's kind of a bit of a sacrificial area for the bees. That's my other dead Tagasaste in through there. And while I might leave these Tagasastes as large trees, I might continue to plant Tagasaste in other areas, but maintain them as a smaller tree, knowing there's at least something for my bees tucked away. And with the removal of the really tall acacias that we did here the other day, I think it's left some space that we can transplant our little Tagasaste trees here, and I'll be sure to kind of maintain them in a small size. Well, so she says. Now there's not too much around where each of these acacias came down, so I think if I just sneak in a little Tagasaste near each of these kind of remaining trunks, you know, that will be a good space to let a little tree grow and just manage it. We've got to manage it for light for the trees behind. We've got the cherry tree, I've got a pomegranate, and there's some stone fruit over the back there. Now, I'll just clear a little bit of space where we can get in and dig. I reckon here will be perfect. And what I'll do is just kind of chop these branches up a little bit finer so we can mulch closely around this tree. I'm going to put the bigger tree in here, so I've got to make sure that that root goes down straight. That's just some of the soil that I dug up from the garden that it had been in. That fills that out nicely. And I'll nestle the other little one in this little spot here. A lot more grass in this spot. It's a bit harder to dig into. Get that out of the way. Okay. And we can get the other one in. And now I'm just going to chop some of this sort of, well, not too finely, fairly roughly, but in smaller pieces, just so we can mulch around the little tree. Keep the moisture in and kind of tuck it in until it gets going. And hopefully all that mulch will suppress the grasses as well. These trees are now in a better spot than up in my vegetable garden, and they'll do just great here if I manage them well. Check out a video that I'll leave a link to in the description that shows, you know, why I love Tagasastes and why I think they're a useful plant in sort of a system like I've got going here. But it looks like I've got to get some water onto this guy to get it happy, but hopefully it won't take too long before it's thriving in this spot. And we'll keep an eye on it. It's at this time of year that I'm really observant of what flowers are out and what the bees are on. What I really would like to do is spread a lot of these plants around in my swales. Yesterday we saw the Tagasaste coming into flower, and that's a great food source at this time of year for the bees, and it also makes a really delicious honey. So that's why I love to spread that one around. But there's many other plants, if you're observant, that perhaps you could propagate and spread around. In one of my earlier videos, I talked about this, and I did some propagation of things like this hebe that's flowering in winter. As a result of that video and the propagation I did, I got these two plants. One's the hebe, and this one here is the native Westringia. And just up here in the corner of my house garden are another two of those plants, the Westringia and the hebe. Now, I propagated these not at the optimal time of year, which is probably in spring, but I did it when I thought about it. I never think about it in spring because they're not in flower, the bees aren't all over them, and I don't see the value as readily. So I decided I'd just give it a go and see what we got. And what I got was some really beautiful plants from the experiment. This Westringia here was another of those plants that I raised back a few years ago, and it's growing really well out in this swale. I've got another one over the back here, and I've got a few rosemary plants too, which I've also propagated. A plant that we looked at recently up in my shelter belt area along the top paddock is this plant here. Now, I mistakenly called it a grevillea when it is in fact a callistemon, and I always get those mixed up. But it's a beautiful plant, and as you can see, it is in flower at this time of year, and the bees absolutely love it. And what I love about these callistemon is the beautiful colours that they come in. I haven't tried propagating callistemon before, but I might give it a go. I would love to spread lots of little plants like this throughout my swales, along with my productive trees and the other sort of volunteer plants. We planted out these two Tagasaste, and in future years they'll be flowering at this time of year. Now, my plan is to get some more little plants, whether it be the Westringia, Hebe, callistemon, or even just rosemary, and kind of dot those little plants throughout the garden so that there's floral abundance all year round. If we can support our birds and bees all through the year, then we give them a home all through the year, and they'll be here at the time when our fruit trees need pollinating. And it just provides a bit of beauty all through the year as well. Now, just here, I've got some rosemary that I put in water 5 or 6 weeks ago just to conserve the herb, actually. And it's grown these roots, which is a reminder to me that, you know, growing your own plants is the best way to fill out areas like my little swale there. So what we're going to do today is just pot these up. I'm going to pot them up, get them to develop a really strong root system before I transfer them out there, just so they're a sturdier plant and have a better chance of survival. Now this one here, it's got a number of different roots, so I might just sort of cut them and turn them into a number of different plants. So we've got more plants to fill out our swales with. We got 1, 2, and there's a little third one there. And we've got a 4th one here, which has just got the one root system going. So we're going to get them into these pots. Now I've just got potting mix like I use with my little seed snails, and that's all that it needs. I'll just cover up those roots in there. Now this one here was the one with a smaller root system, so I'm just going to give that a trim and maybe even just throw that back in the water, but that gives that little plant a better chance to get going. Now I'll just give them a little bit of a water. And there's 4 new plants that we'll be able to add to my swales. Now I've taken a few cuttings. I'm just adding some crushed up willow leaves to the water in which I'll put them in. That's supposed to help stimulate root growth. So I've trimmed them down to just a few leaves. Now I would recommend following someone who knows all about propagation rather than relying on me for what's right and what's wrong, but this is what I'm doing, and I've had success before like this. I've got some more rosemary to shove in there, and I've got some Westringia cuttings here, some that are a bit thicker than others, so we'll see what happens there. Again, no expert, I'm just giving it a go. I'll leave the willow leaves in for a day or 2 and then just drag them out and leave the cuttings in the willow water. Filling up a large garden with beautiful flowering plants can get expensive unless you learn to get them for free. Now, I dug up my Tagasaste and moved those. You know, volunteer plants are great. And I'm hoping to grow a few plants with these cuttings. Pretty sure my rosemary will be successful, but not so sure about the others. But I'm going to have these sitting on my windowsill in the kitchen, and they'll be a reminder to me to A, do some more homework on propagating, and B, perhaps try and do it at the right time of year to increase the chances of success. But anyway, we'll see how all of this goes, and I'll let you know. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Please give me a thumbs up if you have, and I'll see you in the next one.